Clerk, please call the roll.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Humphries.
Here.
Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Rodemacher. Here. Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will start with Finance Director Mark Hotaker is going to do an overview of the budget. Is there any particular, well, I guess you have a slide presentation, right?
So just so you know, my computer didn't work today, and then Leah's can't get connected, so Neil is working from home to change the pages for me. So.
Oh, yes, we really need these new computers.
I just want to start out, I don't know if everybody remembers the process, how this works. We kind of give directions to the department heads. They make their budget, they take it to the committees. Then if they have a committee, it's approved by the committee, and then we sit down, each individual, with the mayor, myself, and Neil. We kind of go over, what the request is and why the request is, and different things in the departments. And then after that, we sit down and the mayor takes all that considerations and talks with me and Neil and makes a recommendation. So this is the result of all this. So this is your executive budget presenting tonight. Very little changes than what was presented to pretty much everybody's committees. So as far as that, Neil, if you could turn to the next page. The next page after that. So the total property tax overall, including debt service, decreased by $17,052, or negative 81.81%. The overall tax property levy is $9,498,204. I'm just going to bring this one. I know it's kind of out of the way. Just kind of fills in for the next couple ones. So during this, we were over budget by basically $206,000. It was over more than that, but to make it balance. So one of the things we decided, we talked about, is taking the garbage and recycle off the tax roll. If you take the garbage out, there is a requirement from the levy limit from the state statute that you have to reduce your base levy limit by what was in the 2013 budget for garbage. And that was $206,221. So that's why you see a negative levy amount. It was to reduce that. But there was a net savings for that of $174,000 by doing that. Allowed us to, the biggest change, allowed us to do the garbage and recycling new contract and everything else. So non-debt service decrease is $206,211. So that's what it was. So we're right on where that number is. By doing that, it did save us about $175,000 that we would have to come up with for cuts. Debt service is exempt from the levy limit. The debt limit increased to $189,169. If you could go to the next page. Yeah. So with the proposed tax rate, the mill rate is $5.86 per thousand. So a decrease of 50 cents from last year, or 7.8%. So what this means on your average property tax, so last year median assessed house was $351,500. Now it's $377,600. It's a decrease of $22.03. Total expenditures were $16,037,400. But there was an increase of $921, $910. A lot of that, we'll get into that. You had larger garbage contract. There's also wage increases. There were some other contracts that did that increase. Total revenues increase also from last year. $1,158,304, or 18% increase from 2023. Oh, shoot. So this is just straight from the like there's a report I have to give, and they have to enter the amount of decrease. Just want to show, here's what it says. So it's funded by 2013. So you don't have to go anything more than that, but you have to take out what was on the 2013 budget amount for garbage. Recycling was exempt, so you don't take that had no effect. Next page. So what does that really mean? So in 2013, we did apply 206,000 again. So we have to increase our base by that. So here's what it is. So when you get your tax bill, you'll have your net property taxes, your bill after all the different districts and your state credit, school credit. Get your net amount, and then you'll have underneath that a special charge. We'll say recycling garbage. So you add that into what your tax bill is. So you have 2,684 people who get the garbage and recycling. So this is how it breaks down. So garbage is it's going to round up $109. Recycling is $33. So net about $142 will be a special charge on your tax bill. As far as that, and I looked around, did a lot of research for communities in Dane County. Basically, all the communities in Dane County have gone that route. There's only like a couple who hasn't. McFarland is one. I can't remember yet. I forgot to bring them. Not McFarland, no, Middleton. But McFarland, Stoughton, Cottage Grove, Fitchburg, Verona. They all have this on there. This is all on their. They all do the same thing. So there's only 3 left. We were one, would be 4 with us that still keep it on the tax route. So it is very common, even throughout the state. This is very common. If you could go to the next page. We'll kind of get. We're talking about revenues tonight, so I don't know if we want to get too much into that right now because we'll talk about it later tonight. Here's some, transportation aid increase 40,000, state share revenue 230,000. There's some decreases in expenditure restraints, and so on. We'll get more detailed on these tonight. Just kind of want to show those. I want to go through the expenses. Next page. So what we did was try to maintain the current services, and this does. Non-reps is a 3% wage increase. We are currently negotiating police and fire, so that will be updated we should have that settled by the time the budget is settled, so we'll have an update on that. Wisconsin rates, WRS rates, they increase a small amount for general from 2.8 to 2.9, and then WRS rates for public safety. So our share was last year was 13.2, now it's 14.3. So that one actually has impacts. That's over 1%, over 1%. So, if you got $2 million in, or basically $3 million in police and fire wages, I rounded up. So, 1% is 30,000 there, just for that 1% change. Just in Wisconsin retirement. Health insurance is 5.44. That puts us over, I don't know the exact amount, but we pay well over $100,000 per month for health insurance. So, if you take that, it's about $70,000 or so just for health insurance increases. But that's over all the funds, including utilities. There's a big
Mark,
recycling.
Mark, could I?
Yep.
Just to clarify, so the 1% equals 30,000. That's just salary, right?
Yeah.
And then would be additional fringes on top.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So I know Dan's talking about tonight. So the garbage and recycling, there's a 1-year contract. He can probably go into more detail to that. There was a change that was made that kind of affected the revenue side. Otherwise, it's a really good contract. I'm looking at it, and it's consistent with other communities. I'd like to say that service did increase by at least $190,000. Fund balance projected almost 25%. Currently, there's no fund balance applied. So I don't know if you can see this very well, but if you mail it out kind of. So this kind of shows the expenses by departments. So you can see the big one is police and dispatch. The next one is Park Rec Community Center. And then kind of after that, you have the fire EMS, the library, kind of your big four with that. So these are expenses, but doesn't, if you go to the next page, this is the page that really shows to me where we're spending, the revenue. So this is the expenditures net of revenues. So if you kind of look at that, you can see the police and dispatch, like the majority of your property taxes is allocated to the police and dispatch. Library and fire EMS are the three biggest. So that's when you kind of say where a lot of our property tax. I know there's state aid that's allocated to everything, but so these are the ones that are specific to that department. So if it's like a court fines, revenues, if it's Jake's, all his departments. If you notice, Jake's or Park and Rec and Community Center was one of the highest for expenses. It's actually one of the lowest as far as the net. So there's a lot of expenses, but there's a lot of revenue coming in to offset that. So when you kind of look at that, you're thinking about, well, we're at net zero for next year. Net new construction is probably going to be zero again. There's no new state aid coming in. Where do you cut? I mean, we have revenues coming into this, and this is a hard thing you kind of look at. Well, the three biggest ones are police, fire, and library, and public safety is really with the new state share revenues. It's really hard to touch that. So it's really everything below that, but that doesn't have a lot of impact because we have revenues offsetting a lot of that stuff. So it's just kind of to me, it tells a big picture of, your net property taxes, kind of where it goes. If you go to the next page. And then we kind of had talked about this before, and I get a lot of detail. We all know the net new construction issue that's coming next year. This year is a negative percentage. Next year, it's going to be right around zero. So it's going to be that same issue again. We don't have new state shared revenue as a one-time deal. And also, we be expenditure restraint program. This year they froze it for 1 year. I basically said because all this net state share revenues, you don't have to require. If you met it for this year, meaning 2024 budget, you automatically guarantee to get it for 2025. But if we had to, so basically, if we couldn't increase our levy by a certain, or not expenses by a certain percentage, it would be less than 0.5% because it takes CPI. Well, I guess CPI is high. It would be CPI plus your net new construction, and so you'd be whatever the CPI number was. They haven't told us, but since state share revenue went into effect for 1 year, they are putting it on hold. So whatever you get this year, you get next year. So we don't have to qualify expenditure-wise for that. So that's a big savings this year for us.
Mark?
Nancy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I would just, I think it would be helpful in the interest of not only new alders, but also just as a review to explain the net new construction and how it's applied, given that we, we're at zero and we also have some shovels in the ground finally.
Right. So net new construction is, it's the anything that happens during the year, anything that's shoveled in the ground, like tear down and being rebuilt. At the end of the year, as a 1/1 of each year, the assessors come out and they say, okay, this is what that project is, and this is new construction. The problem you end up with the negative is if there's a bunch of tear downs, that decreases that number. We do have a couple projects, like down by the White Horse, North Point, is just starting. So that's really our only construction for this year. I guess we had one other commercial and some residential. But we do have a couple demolitions coming, so I think it's going to offset it. The Bloom would be demo this year, and so Monona Gardens, it's supposed to be per their developers agreements. So that's why I'm saying it's basically going to be zero again for next year. But it is based on what happens in the current year. So whatever happens in new construction this year affects next year's budget. So these projects, when you're doing, do make a big difference with our levies.
So, Mark, if I could just add to that, So the net new construction, it's a percentage of
Oh, yeah,
the total equalized value for the city, which,
correct.
what is that now?
That's 1,800 million and some change.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
And sort of one thing people probably aren't aware of is that the increase in the housing prices has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Our net value, equalized value, so it's further squeezed. It makes it harder and harder for us to get enough new construction to net out to anything.
It does, because like just alone this last year, they call it economic change, which is the sale prices adjustments and all that, was basically 10%. So, that's a big number.
Yeah.
Just that, then you got to try to get then you got to get the new construction, and that's hard to do. So 2% of almost $2 billion is $40 million projects. So just to get
Yeah.
2%. So if you want to go to the next page. Oh, a couple things. So there's no rate increases for the water and sewer. We did get a pass along a sewer rate increase for Madison Metro. But doing the analysis, we don't need to pass it along to our customers yet. We're still meeting our requirements for debt requirements and that. So I did not propose to pass it along for the sewer. We are looking at a stormwater rate about 5%, and that's included in the budget. And that's all I have. Yeah, questions or concerns?
Questions for Mark, anyone? Teresa?
Yeah, about the, can I ask about the stormwater, Mark?
Yeah.
So that was a 5% increase in costs to us from Madison Metro. Is that right?
No, so that would have been from sewer. I don't know I can't remember the exact number they passed on. So sewer, Madison Metro Sewer Districts, they do analysis and they send us a updated cost each year, like they passed. It might have been like 6%. I don't know the exact. I can get that exact number. So they charge us for their. We pay them probably $900,000. I can't remember. So they increased that by 6 or 7%. But with where our sewer rates currently are, and where our debt ratios are, we didn't need to pass that on. We might have to in the future. We run more analysis if they keep on increasing that cost to us. Stormwater is just our debt service going up, and then also just more activity in those fund to cover our debt requirements.
But we could choose to raise our stormwater rates commensurate with the 5% increase. Is that correct?
You mean the stormwater or sewer?
Stormwater.
There's a 5% increase coming from somewhere. I believe Madison Metropolitan Sewage District.
That's for sewer.
So
we're not
for sewer.
We're not moving that on. Stormwater is our internal utility.
Okay.
So that's just based on trying to, for our internal, for our stormwater, we have to meet, debt requirements and some others, just to balance the budget, which requires about a 5% increase.
Okay. All right. Thank
Rick,
you.
are you thinking if we were to increase
The
the
sewer,
rate, then we'd have more money to spend on operating?
you're talking about for sewer.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm
I mean,
not sure if
if
he
you want to pass that on.
I'm not sure how clear it is, though, that anything that comes from our sewer rates have to be used just for
Has to be used for
sewer expenses, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
they can't be
but-
used for other operating.
But we have control over the stormwater rates.
Yes.
Yeah.
The PSC has control of the water rates.
Right. And
Yeah. So any additional revenue through stormwater could replace whatever city revenue is being used for stormwater infrastructure or whatever those expenses are.
We're increasing the stormwater just to balance the budget in the stormwater. So it's really going to use for the expenses in the stormwater fund and to meet our debt requirement coverage. So we can't take that extra 5% and move it back into the general fund or another fund. Is that what you mean?
Well, I guess I'll take a closer look at those details offline here. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it.
Teresa, did
But
you?
I got my question partially answered, I think.
Teresa?
Thank you. Great presentation, Mark. Thank you for putting together that PowerPoint. My question is on slide number 6 with the heading Garbage Off the Tax Roll Levy Adjustment. And I'm just looking at the second to last and the third from the bottom bullet point, the two that begin with garbage and recycle. Thank you. Can you tell me, on that fraction, what's the denominator? What is 2,684?
That's how many customers.
Units.
So that's how many people we have recycling with.
Okay. So every customer is sharing equally in the adjustment?
Yes. This would be, yes, the customers who actually use it would be using it.
So a person, regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of their, it's just an across the board, everybody pays $141.75.
I mean, we don't
regardless
have
of
like
their-
a sliding scale rate for income or anything like that. Is that what you mean? Like,
that's where I'm going with this.
We don't
I'm
have-
just
I mean-
wondering, right. I guess I'm just wondering
I don't know how
if
you-
indeed my understanding is correct. It is. And then I guess I'm just wanting to make sure that it's clear that
I don't know if anybody in the house, I've heard
I don't
anybody
know
has a
how-
sliding scale one
I don't know
before.
how you would fix it. I
Right.
don't know how we would go about changing it. I just want to make sure I understand correctly and that it's, I wish if there's an idea for how we might have a more equitable approach. I don't know. It's a small number, I get it. $141 is not that big of a deal, but in the interest.
I mean,
Patrick?
it was being paid out of property taxes before.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like there's a sudden large amount of a difference. But
Yeah.
before, with property taxes, commercial units that didn't have municipal garbage service were also paying a portion for garbage removal, even though they weren't getting that service. So every business in town that has a dumpster is still paying a portion of their taxes towards garbage removal. So now it's being attributed to the individual accounts that actually use garbage removal.
Okay.
A lot of condos and stuff like that. They're-
But I mean, I think it's fair to say that charging each customer the same amount is more aggressive than the property tax.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, that's, if
I
you
mean-
look at the, yeah. I mean, it's cheaper if you leave it on the tax roll because then you have your business they're paying for, the condos are, so if I ran the numbers just on, I don't have them, I wish I could, but I can have for them for the next meeting, I can send an email. It's probably about what it charged if you left it on the tax roll. It's probably, I can't remember what exactly, I don't remember, I can't give you the number. But yeah, you'd have like your condos be paying for it, your businesses be paying for it, any unit over 8 would be paying for it, to apartment complexes like the current and stuff like that. So yeah, so you'd have it cheaper, it would be cheaper.
But just, my point is, in general, the property tax, even though it may not be the most progressive tax, it's more progressive than saying everybody has to pay the same amount.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Dan, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to add that each stop is going to be paying $12.75 per month. So the 2,686 units that you saw, each one of those will be paying $12.75 a month for combined service.
No, total.
That's how we arrive at the 140.
Right.
Okay.
And then I would
Mayor Alderwood has her hand raised.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Alder Moore?
What?
Baltimore, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I was confused. Thank you. I just wanted to say in relation to that, I certainly appreciate Alder Rodemacher's concern, and I share it. On the other hand, it's directly commensurate with the people that are receiving the service, and they are receiving the same service. We all have the same size recycling, and we have the same size trash bins, and we we get the same service on a weekly basis. And so in some ways, I think you could argue that the fees that we're talking about charging are actually more equitable because it's directly related to the service that's being provided on an equal basis. And in fact, if somebody has 2 recycling bins or has 2 trash bins and have requested that, they pay for that extra bin. So it just would share that.
Alder DePula.
And then, I just wanted to be clear that condo owners right now that are paying property taxes the same as everyone else are paying double for trash removal.
True.
Because they're paying for their own private trash removal, and a part of their tax bill is going towards that trash removal as well, that they get no benefit from. So,
And the same thing for larger apartment buildings.
same thing for large apartment buildings. So and all those fees are transferred to the tenants anyway, so it's not like they're not paying them. But it's, just to reinforce what Nancy said, in my opinion, it's probably more equitable.
Has someone talked to them?
Yeah.
But has someone talked to them about the shouting and the noise? Can't they rehearse in the room? And
Let's open this one and close that one.
Is there not a door in the other room to close?
Sorry, I had a question.
Doug,
It's a nice thing.
So, Mark, if somebody wanted to, so if we didn't want to do the garbage off the property tax option, what we would need, you'd need to fill a, what is it, $202,000 hole, right?
206. The other option is
206.
tax or a larger cut, yeah.
Do what?
Or otherwise,
Wheel
maybe
tax, possibly?
Wheel tax would be
Right.
the other option we probably would have looked at.
or cutting $200,000.
Right, yeah. So, would a wheel tax generate about the same amount of revenue?
So, yeah, I've got the updated numbers from the state, so that I can call. It's about $60,000 per every $10. So if it's the $40, say if it's a $40 wheel tax amount, it's $240. So it's a little bit more, So every $10 is $60,000.
Okay.
Alder Holmquist.
All right, without wanting to get too bogged down in the weeds. With the 50-cent decrease in the overall tax, and if you take the average home, the 377,
Yeah.
and then you take the trash and recycling, there's actually still a savings of $45.55 for the median household. So by pulling out the garbage, although there's a separate charge at the 142,
Yeah.
the 50-cent reduction in the overall.
Right, so the average house would be a reduction of $22. So, then so it'd be a net effect of an increase of 122, right, roughly around there.
Should be a decrease if you said it was a 50-cent reduction for the average home per thousand.
Mill rate, that's the mill rate.
Oh, that was
Yeah. Yeah, the values of the homes going up. So the tax, well, I see what you're saying. I
Yeah.
get that. I got to do the math. I know what you're saying. But we just did the difference from an average house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not accounting for the increase in the value of the home.
Yeah.
It's
I get that number.
roughly
How does that offset it? Could you say that again?
the mill rate has gone down 50 cents per
Right.
thousand.
Yeah.
Although the average home value went from 340 to 377. So if you ignore that for a second, that 50-cent reduction in the mill rate has a tax savings.
That's not all due to, that's not, how much of that's due to the garbage, though?
I'm not suggesting it's
Oh,
only
okay.
due to the garbage.
Right.
I'm just saying between that number and the garbage addition is still a savings overall at this level
No,
of
it's still going to
presentation.
be, if your tax bill stays the same, if your assessment stays the same, then there would be a savings. But
Yes.
Your assessment's going up. So there's a savings of $22. If you have a lot higher, if your assessment's a lot higher, you're going to see a lot. If you had a smaller increase from the prior year, you'll have a lot bigger savings if you have a small.
But I don't think we could necessarily
Yeah,
argue
but
by the tax bill. We'd have to argue by the mill rate, because your home might go up 50,000, your home might go up 20,000. It's not going to be the same. So
Right.
the mill rate equals that out of 50 cents saving per thousand.
Yeah.
And based if your home went up or down or stayed the same.
Yeah, I can run those numbers. I don't know, but I still think it's an increase. But I'll run.
If
I know what
your-
you're saying.
If your home went up in
Yeah,
value, yes.
I mean, the overall mill rate has
Decrease.
dropped
Decreased.
tremendously in the last 5 years. It used to be 22, 23 cents on 1,000,
Yeah.
counting all the
Right.
government units in, and now it's 18 and a half or something.
Yeah. And I don't have the final number from the school districts. The overall number will change a little bit, but it's a pretty good estimate from what information I received.
Anyone else have questions about this introductory? Plenty of your opportunities. Okay, well then let's move on. First item after that is information technology. Mia, and this is on page 41.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. For those of you who haven't met him, this is Jaron Vidalin. He is the guy who does the real IT work, he's a consultant from Land Tech, and I brought him along today in case you have any questions that I can't answer, which is probably realistic. So, IT budget this year, unfortunately, reflects a 16% increase over last year. Almost all of that increase is just due to increases in the cost of our service contracts and software licenses. Our amount that we're paying for our tech support from Land Tech remains the same as last year, but we're seeing the biggest increases in our license fees. So we are seeing a $7,000 increase for our Microsoft licenses because Microsoft is ending support for Office 2016, which we're on, so we need to upgrade those licenses, which is more expensive. And then we are seeing increases in the cost of our cybersecurity software. And in addition to increases, we're going to beef that up a little bit, just out of necessity and what's going on in the world. So those are the two biggest increases. I'm also included in this budget a bit of an increase to our website maintenance cost. That is primarily for two reasons. One, the cost is just increasing. The annual fee for that is increasing. But also we are eligible for redesign on our site again. We get a redesign every 48 months, so we're eligible for another redesign. And while there are a lot of additional bells and whistles that we can add and do, and chatbots and more robust emergency notifications and all kinds of stuff, I mean, every single one of those upgrades is $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 more dollars a year. So one upgrade that I am recommending for this year, though, is that we design what's called a site within a site for our Parks and Recreation pages. So our Parks, Pool, River Rink, only because Parks and Recreation is consistently the most visited site pages on our website. And I think that they could really benefit from being more of their own website within our website, which would give them, I think, greater flexibility in how they present their services and information and how readable that is to the user. So it's the addition of that site within a site is actually about $800 a year, which I think is very well worth it. But there is a close to $3,000 one-time implementation fee. So In addition to that, we're having to archive all our social media posts now, so that adds an additional just over $7,000 to the cost.
Can you explain again why that is that we need to archive all the social media posts?
Because they're open records
Yeah.
under the open records law, so we have to be able to produce those records if we are asked to.
And that is even if they are deleted from social media.
Right. And so those are just like cold storage.
That goes to actually Archive Social that maintains all of those records.
So we're not actively doing anything to get them archived. We're paying for a service to archive it.
Correct.
Is that it, Leah?
That's what I have. Yep.
Anybody have any questions for Leah? You did such a wonderful job. I guess we don't have any
I guess I do have
Oh,
a question.
okay.
Sorry, sorry to ruin it. You mentioned a website redesign. I'm assuming that's pretty low-level redesign. You're
Yes.
not. It's so maybe like adding a couple pages that don't exist right now is.
It's
what does it
really more in
entail?
just sort of the aesthetic design of the
like
site.
a different like page layout template option and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time to sort of move things around if we feel we
Yeah.
need to, and we usually just do sort of an internal committee to talk about what's working, what's not
Yeah.
working, and we can talk about,
Oh, I don't have any big ideas. I just was curious because that's kind of a big undertaking. So
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Mayor, I have my hand up.
Okay. Nancy?
Leah, thanks for letting us know about Park and Rec. I'm just curious, since you're obviously following the traffic, if you could tell us, what maybe the second, third, fourth, layers of interest are from our constituent. I mean, besides Parks and Rec, where are people going on the website?
So they are also going to the library pages.
Uh-huh.
So generally, it's Park and Rec pages are up there first, and library is always a very close second.
I would
During
think
the during the pool season, the pool page is the biggest hit. During the ice skating season, the river ring page is the biggest hit. So those are the biggest uses of our site.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is planning. Mr. Bauman. And Doug has several pages, so I don't know where you want to start, Doug. If you want to tell us the page number you're going to start on, or?
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry, I just have the extract, but I'll be starting with the main planning budget.
And I think that's 94.
Thank you. So very few changes with this as far as the financials relate to the planning. The main one was the professional development line item. Specifically here is a request for an addition of $1,000. Really, that is to assist with department-wide professional development and assisting the Thor Jepson, the assistant planner, and sort of providing some professional development funds to him. This year, we sort of made do with the funding, the previous $2,700, but it did sort of require a little more coordination, just making sure we had things covered. I'm pretty strong in support of that, of sort of professional dues, fees, as well as conferences. And just of note, next year as well, the National Planning Association conference will be in Minneapolis. Typically, it's on the coasts. This past year, it was in Philadelphia, for example. So that's one that I've earmarked. I've not attended in about 10 years, and that's one that will be able to take a vehicle instead of flying and things. So I think there'd be some benefits there. So hoping to be able to do that, but also cover his dues as well. So happy to answer any questions as it relates to the planning budget and sort of that proposal.
And some of the planning salaries are spread out in other departments as well. So, Brian?
Outside services were eliminated. What was that previously? Was it kind of training?
Yeah, I would have to double check that with Mark.
It probably shouldn't have been in there last year, that's why.
Outside services. It looks like we didn't spend anything on
It would have
them.
been from the year before, and they probably just forgot to remove it.
Do we know what it was historically? Because it looked like
It shouldn't have been there. Yeah, last year.
You know what those projects were? I don't remember.
Is that like when
I'll look the
Is
projects
that like
up.
when we go out to like Verbeeker and that sort of thing? Is that what that could be?
That's typically covered by escrows and things from
It
development.
might have been some landmark project or something like that, some stuff we
Oh,
got
yeah.
money back
In
for.
previous year, yeah, there was, like when we did the survey, the
Yes.
architectural survey.
Yeah.
CLG grants, yeah, and they were reimbursed as well. So.
Yeah, I forgot to probably zero it out last year. Yeah. I think we had it again for 2021.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Doug, I think we're applying for a historic preservation grant for this year. Does that need to be accounted for in the budget anywhere?
That would be the CLG grant for the possible frostwoods, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, I believe that will be a net zero. There's no city match. That would be a full grant if awarded. So from an accounting purpose, I'm not quite sure. I assume that would be.
A lot of times if that has to do with council and stuff like that, depends on the situation. A lot of times we just approve it at council and do the budget amendment there if needed.
Yeah.
Since we don't know for sure if we're getting it is right now, is that
Yeah,
why it's
we're
not?
at with the process.
That's true. I would point out that you can include whatever your costs are, salary, overhead, as part of the grant. So there may be some funding coming to offset some of your salaries and overhead. So that's a possibility.
Thank you, and that was done with the last CLG with the previous 25,000. We did account for some of that with. It was a couple different positions there that we added that in and included it. So that was definitely useful, and I know Assistant Planner Jepson has already made mention of that as well this time. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions about the planned budget? Okay, Doug, what's next?
Next is Community Development Authority, and I believe this is in order, so it should follow straight on from planning.
Yeah, I think it's 97.
Again, this is really proposed to stay very consistent, very steady. We are maintaining professional development. I'm calling this out because it's probably the most variable of all of the line items. Maintaining the WEDC Connect Communities membership, which is something former Administrator Gatto began and sort of initiated, something that I've taken up and I see as a worthwhile initiative, as well as some economic development training, which we're actually going to be using in order for me to attend a WEDA Workforce Housing, Affordable Housing Conference in a couple of weeks. So nice to have sort of the separation there. I think there are different buckets and different allocations for this, but everything else really is staying the same. And as previously mentioned, there is sort of a reallocation of some salaries and things like that through this line item and through this budget.
Anyone have questions?
Can we transfer more from TIF?
I asked about that, and I think, Mark, you didn't think we could transfer any more from TIF, did you?
Sorry.
There's certain funds that there's only certain TIFs that do, and I haven't done it yet. Put more in there just because some of those funds are going to donor districts, so it takes away from the one.
Right.
So we can, if you want to put more in there, we can do that. But yeah, you can put more, transfer it in there.
When you say more, yeah.
I mean higher than this, whatever.
Like 10,000 more, or?
Yeah, I mean you could.
Not.
Yeah.
Not 50 though.
Well, we'd only need about 20, right?
Okay.
Right.
True.
Yeah, I mean, you
okay.
could.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'd like to hear Mark for something. I mean.
So that is okay, because when I asked you about it, you said it wasn't, so.
Oh, there's certain things. The reason I don't like to do it, just because right now TIF 5.
Yeah.
That's the big TIF. So TIF 6 is the big one where you can transfer it, but that TIF 6 is also the big donor district, the TIF 5. And that's
Right.
where I get a little bit.
It's TIF 5 Heritage.
Yeah.
TIF 6.
So the reason I ask is partly I'm kind of channeling Kathy, I think, but she always wanted, if we could use TIF, let's use TIF and not property taxes, so.
Yeah. But this one doesn't touch, we don't have any, there is no property taxes that, for this.
Well, there's a transfer from the general.
Yeah,
fund,
that's true.
so.
That was originally set up because it was required. They wanted that because that was the tourism money at the time. They said
Oh,
20,000 that originally came out.
but now it's not, right?
It's always been there. I mean, that was originally what they said about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's where it originally came from. As well, we have this hotel tax money. Let's take the 20,000 out. Technically, that's where that came from. That was 20, 15, 20 years ago.
Okay, thanks.
So at the end of the day, no.
Probably not
The answer is
worth it.
okay.
Yeah.
Not even a little.
What's the next thing?
Thanks. Renew Monona would be the next one, which I believe, again, follows on. No narrative with this one, just the one page, the Excel spreadsheet. Very few changes here. I think just worth mentioning, a couple of you were present last night at the CDA meeting, just talking about sort
It's
of some...
148, actually.
Yes, thank you. 148. A couple of the alders and the mayor were present last night at the CDA meeting where there's some discussion about the Renew Monona project and sort of future direction of that program. So that will be continuing at the CDA. Those discussions will continue. I think there were a couple items that were addressed last night, recommended or suggested for sort of inclusion in future draft documentation, but just something that will be being looked at. But we certainly have seen an increase in interest in the program as interest rates have changed and things like that. So just wanted to give a little background there, but the 23 to 24, the proposal is very similar.
Okay. Any questions?
Greg, you said that was last night's meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that will be continuing, probably not in November. We've got a couple other items, but maybe December and into January as well.
And do you have inspections?
Inspections begins on 67, so actually going forward in the document again. So inspections, this covers both building inspection as well as the code enforcement. One thing to mention here, specifically the building inspection, really fluctuates based on the permits, the revenues that are coming in with that. Typically, more permits, more revenue, more time is needed, and should be spent in the city inspecting and doing those things. So some bigger commercial projects have come through, and thinking about that, but also some large residential projects, large new homes, things like that, that would specifically be the inspector that we have here at the city. So I think this is a little bit more, can fluctuate, but really at this point looking to sort of keep service steady, but being mindful of what may be coming forward. And then also code enforcement and certainly the impact that may have with short-term rentals and things like that with the permit revenue coming from that as well. So I would expect in 2025 having sort of a clearer vision of that, what it may look like, time allocation, things like that.
Yeah, as far as the expenditures, we always kind of have done it. If it's revenues are up, but the expenses kind of go the same. So so we'd like to keep it similar. And if it goes up, then expenses are going up, revenues are going up.
And the bulk of that goes for the contracted services with what general and engineering.
GEC, yes.
Yeah, GEC. So, questions, anybody? Okay, I think that's it, Doug. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is library. Ryan, that's on page 107.
Good evening, everyone. Let's see, with the library, look at page 107. A lot of this is remaining the same, but I can go over some of the differences that I have here. Big one is 240, which is service contracts. That is, the ask for the increase in that is for two main reasons. One is the South Central Library System, our regional library system. Their rates have increased by approximately $1,000, so to cover that. And then
Is that for the catalog?
No, that's for partial payment within their, I don't like how this is structured, so I apologize, but part of that payment is within that the ILS, but then additional technology is actually down in the auto circulation system rental, that increase. So those two combined deal with the technology that SCLS facilitates and runs.
So the circulation system rental and service contracts?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But within service contracts as well is our cleaning contract. The library, to be frank, is under-cleaned. Like it should be cleaned at a higher rate, more of the spaces. Our current contract is kind of like a la carte, where we go through and pick the room, what services are done in that room, how often, like a week or a month that it's done. And I mean, we are kind of skating by, but we're skating by with staff kind of chipping in here and there, vacuuming, wiping the tables, that kind of thing when we notice that it's off. And being the public building that we are and the foot traffic that we get with, approximately over 100,000 people a year, it just, in my opinion, needs to be cleaned more. The rate we have is, I'm surprised we're actually paying what we're paying. When I go out for bids, it's much higher. This was a couple of years ago. I looked at actually like hiring a staff member to just do cleaning, and that was not realistic. I do have a quote from a company that is very reliable, has very good reviews from other libraries in the area. The difference in cost is what you see here. So my whole.
So will they be doing providing more hours of cleaning then?
Correct. Yeah. Yep. More hours total. If you want, I could give you the breakdown, but each room would be different in terms of its schedule. Like this space is cleaned X amount of times, right? And it does so much, like wiping down the tables, that kind of thing. Our quiet reading room is done so much. The big one, frankly, is vacuuming. They do it based on square footage, and it's just a large library. So how we have it broken up is maybe even once a month, but once every couple weeks is a full vacuum. Otherwise, it's like spot vacuum or like high traffic areas. But as I walk through the library, I'll see spots that it doesn't look good. It really does not look good. So I'll grab the vacuum in the morning and do it. And we need more cleaning. So that's why that increases in there. The auto circulation system rental I already touched on. That ties into SCLS and the technology that they provide. And also somewhat related to the cleaning, janitorial supplies I increased by $200. That primarily is given the rates of like toilet paper, hand towels, those have gone up in cost. It's to cover that, as well as we're trying to get more sanitary wipes for like the computer stations. We would like to clean those more regularly based on the computer usage. And that's it. Everything else I'm keeping the same. What was that? Oh, thank you. So on the revenue side, the biggest difference you'll see is the county aid for libraries. That has gone down. I think I touched on that at an earlier meeting, but the county library provides funding for the Dane County libraries. That's based on the 3-year rolling average. That formula really has two main points. One is the square footage of your building, which really never changes. The other is physical circulation. And as they do that 3-year rolling average, it will go up or down depending on how that formula plays out between our library and the other libraries in the county. The big dip is due to the fact that during COVID, they opted to just use the 2019 circulation for 3 years because circulation was thrown off during COVID. This is the first year really where they're incorporating other years, and that 3-year rolling average is meant to soften the blow if there's any fluctuations. And since now that 3-year rolling average didn't really take place, there's a significant drop. One of the priorities of the library is still to focus on physical circulation. The frustrating part is our circulation is actually pretty decent when you look at it per capita. We are second in SCLS per capita based on service population. But it's based off of totals when it comes to county funding. And so when you're dealing with Verona, Sun Prairie, Middleton, and Sequoia Branch and Penny Branch, which all of those have a very high circulation. The new Wanakee building affected our circulation. The new Penny affected our circulation. It's a challenge that we continue to deal with, but that's why you see that number down significantly this year. The only other adjustment I made is copier receipts. Based on current usage, I believe that will go up significantly. We're also looking at possibly increasing the charges on those.
Anyone have any questions for Ryan?
I have one.
Rick?
Sure. Ryan, I don't know if you were in the room when Leo was talking, but the number one use of the web is Parks and Rec, but your library is the second, and it appears that every 4 years you get a chance to upgrade, revise your website based on that service contract we have. Do you have any thoughts on how the website for the library could be improved, and would it be a good idea to kind of consider some kind of redesign at this point?
My understanding with the website redesign, I've been here where we went through one. The redesign is for the entire city site. So the library website is essentially a page, like a mega page on the city's site. And so we are somewhat tied to the template changes that are made to the entire city site. So while we can provide or ask for some aesthetic changes and design changes, maybe a little bit structural changes when it comes to menus, we cannot just, if we stay on the city's site, make it look however we want. The big thing, if I recall, is like there's a city search bar that's up there, and that I believe we can't hide. But regardless, we are looking at how to always improve our website, since it is, as you stated, heavily used. We try to go through and, forgive me for using a library term, like weed out the pages that we no longer need, or the content, or make changes as much as we can. But frankly, while it is good to look at the website, we continue to really just look at our marketing in general. The website just being one arm of that marketing. We also look at the posters that we put out in the library, out in the community, using, of course, WVMO, which is a fantastic resource. We do rely heavily on word of mouth, since people that come to the library, if they like it, they then share it with their families. We have the e-newsletter, our own, as well as tying to the city's e-newsletter. So we definitely do consider the website and what we can do to improve it. But based on what I'm aware of, we are somewhat confined within the overall template of the city site itself.
Well, just based on what I heard earlier, there seems to be the ability to have a website within the website, so some kind of expanded...
I think that's an extra cost, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It was $4,000 to do the redesign and $800 a year to maintain. But I just wondered if it's possible, if the money was there, if it would fit into your marketing plan or what have you.
I'm always for improved marketing and awareness, and just being a site for the community to go to, and definitely something to look into. And we do plan to do the new strategic plan starting in early 2024, and through that process it may also come to light that the website is either A, heavily used, or B, would be heavily used if it was improved upon. And with that information, I think it would definitely justify asking for an additional cost with the website.
Yeah, I guess based on our current contract, you have to wait 4 years in between redesigns. So just keep that in mind in terms of your strategic planning.
Yep, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Ryan? Doesn't look like it. Oh, Brian?
So I see in other revenues, I see the county revenue went down. Taxes, a major shift to an additional 25, a little bit more than 25. well, close to 32,000. What are the other revenue? Are there other revenue sources? It looks like that have dipped that maybe shouldn't have dipped.
I'm not sure what other revenue sources would have dipped per se besides our room. I mean, in terms of the library, the revenue is primarily the county aid, but then we have the room rentals, the printing and copiers that we have, and the vending machine, as well as fines, which is frankly should be more like fees. We don't have late dues anymore. Primarily, that's from lost items that then we charge them to bring back. One thing, I guess, in terms of what could we improve upon is with the lost items, it is a case-by-case basis where often a patron would just pay for the lost item when we tell them that it's lost and they can't find it and bring it back. One, we could tighten up the window where we do provide so many days where they can bring it back and then they get a refund. So we could tighten that and say, we're sorry, but you're past that date. The other thing is, in certain circumstances, this doesn't happen very often, but like, say, for example, I had a patron who was in and granted, this is extreme, but they were in a car accident, and in that car accident, they had like several DVDs that were damaged. And each DVD, of course, is a cost. It was like $100 and some. I worked with them and reduced that fee based on their circumstances, but I could be like, I'm very sorry, but per our policy, you'll have to pay for the full amount of those damaged items. That's also something that we could look at.
Have you ever considered charging some kind of an additional processing fee for the staff time involved in ordering it and
when it comes to like the
for like a lost
items.
book? Yeah, I don't know. I know at one time we talked about
We have
that.
something in our, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, and I should know it off the top of my head, but we do have something where if it's under a certain amount, we don't do a refund because that's essentially the processing fee. So if
But I mean, if you just, I'm saying if you pay, there's one charge to actually buy the book and replace it, but
Right.
then there's also your staff time involved. Do you ever charge anything for your staff time involved?
No,
In addition to buying the book?
not for every item. It's only for like it has to be over, I believe, like $11 for us to do like a reimbursement. If it's under that, we don't do that because it's essentially like the cost of doing that.
I guess I'm not sure what you mean by reimbursement. I wasn't talking about a reimbursement.
You're just saying like, well, if they bring it back, essentially.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that. If someone loses a book and you have to buy a replacement book, do you charge them in addition to the cost of buying the book, do you charge them something else for your staff time involved?
There
in
is
that?
no broken out processing fee, which we
Okay.
could implement. Then the question would be, because what happens often is a patron will have a lost item status. More often than not, they just forgot about it, and they go look through their house. So they have this lost fee, and then they bring it back, and then it's wiped if it's
Okay.
high enough. So the question in this case then would be, do we still retain the processing fee?
Well, you still would have an extra copy of the book, right?
Well, no, we don't automatically purchase the book.
Oh, okay.
We assume
Okay.
that more often than not, it's going to come back. So there is that
Okay.
window, that grace window, and that's where I mentioned, like, we could tighten that up and say, you have 2 weeks to bring it back. I think now it's like a month.
Okay.
But, and then to your point, we could implement a processing fee that's non-refundable. So even if you get a lost item status, you will be charged regardless of $1.50 for hitting that lost item status. Philosophically, that seems like it's almost very close getting back to like late fees, but it's definitely something to look at to
I know
try
some
to improve our
libraries have
revenues.
done it, I know, but I didn't know if you, and I didn't realize you didn't always, I guess I should have thought that, didn't always replace the book even though you charged for it.
No, well, I mean, if we do lose it, then actually we look at like the history of the book. Is it a popular item? Is it something that's been like, if someone took out like Count of Monte Cristo and it's had one circ in like 3 years, we'll probably end up frankly getting it because it's a classic. But there are circumstances where if a lost item, we just don't replace it because it's not really checked out very well.
Okay. Any other questions? I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Aline, Clerk and Elections.
It's page 33 and 34. The publications, that's going to be the newspaper that we get, Wisconsin State Journal and the Herald, that's gone up a little bit, so we increased that. And then service contracts did go up $600. That's for the election equipment, maintaining the service contract on those.
Yeah, for the clerk one on page 33, just want to explain a little bit with the salaries. So I don't know if you're aware of, last year we did some rearranging. The water utility lady used to be 100% water related or utility related, and now she's basically deputy clerk, so she does a lot of election stuff, and just clerk stuff. So I had to, to be honest and realistic, I had to reallocate some of her time from the water utilities into the clerk office to be more in line what her time is actually being spent. So that's why there's a clerk increase in salaries. And really kind of too, also going back to the elections. Did you do elections?
Just the service contract.
Oh, so elections too, she didn't mention it, but the service contracts did go up. But the big thing there is it's one of those things, like some years there's four elections, some years there's maybe 2. And so instead of like each year adjusting to what the election season is, we just keep that usually at a steady budget every year. So some years are high, some years are low, like in 2020 we're 23, but then we're down to, 8,000 a year after. So we kind of keep that number consistent in there, so we don't go up and down.
Done.
So the deputy clerk now, you're allocating more of her salary here. So is that there's less of it being allocated in the utility then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And are you also allocating some of Elliot's salary here too, right? And from the, I assume that was the judicial budget before?
I think so. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, Mark. Now it's time for the big budget.
Move to adjourn.
You didn't want to start with the general building stuff, Dan?
Yeah.
Thank you. That is page 50.
Okay. So I handed out my annual DPW operational budget highlight sheet. Rick and Nancy, I did email this to you. Rick, just probably about an hour ago. For those,
I got it.
For those who are new to council that haven't been through my presentation for the budget, each year for the past 12 years I create what's called an operational highlight sheet because I think it's 12 budgets. I tend to highlight changes in operational line items, whether they move by $500, either increasing or decreasing. I'll explain those line items. Anything related to salaries, health insurance, things like that that are formula based, our finance director takes care of and puts into our budgets for us. So I pretty much stay to the operations and maintenance portion of what we do in public works in our budget. So I will go through this sheet quite fast, but that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. So if there's any questions about any line item that I have in my budget, please let me know and I'll explain it for you. Okay, so getting started with general buildings and grounds. That's the City Hall facility budget. We use this money to help cover operations and maintenance for administration, police, and fire wings of City Hall.
The gas and electric utility, we're increasing that by $600. We also have an electrical allocation for this room that's assigned to that account. So it's increasing by the annual rate increase. The stormwater line item, we're decreasing by $1,300, and that's based on need. For the rain garden and landscaping, we're increasing that by $900. We do hire Barnes to help us out in the spring with one mulch bed cleaning for the entry sign to the City Hall parking lot, and then the landscaping gardens that you see in front of City Hall. So they assist us with that each year. And the repair and maintenance supply account is decreasing by $700 based on need. Are there any questions for the City Hall budget?
Doug?
Yeah, just on, maybe this is more of a Mark question, but the salaries, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, so basically what happened is, it used to allocate last year, the building maintenance person, Chris, what's his name, used to get allocated between general buildings and the rec, or community center. So you'll notice at the community center, the salaries are down about 11,000 or 12,000. So now he gets allocated based on his actual, and then just from, just to be more in line where he's actually spending his time, I moved into the general building. He doesn't do as much for the community center anymore. Basically, they have their own cleaning crew. They weren't turning the tables over as much, so he was basically almost 100% general. So we kind of moved that all over there. He does stuff. We charge out to when you do it. But if you look at the community center budget, you'll see a decrease in the salaries.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
I just have a real general question about health insurance for my general edification. I mean, all throughout this document, I'm seeing slight increases here, slight decreases there. It's not just an across the board increase or decrease. So does it all just come down to the policies that each individual staff member is choosing?
I believe.
It's not as though the city just renegotiates a blanket policy. It depends on the individual, is what it all is.
So we have a contract. We work with that broker, House and Johnson, and they go out and work with courts and dean. They try to get the best thing for us.
Right.
So then there's two different types. We have the family and single plan where it's 10% deduction from the employees. There's a copay per office visit. And then there's a HSA rate too. So depending on what they take, and then we also have opt-out. So they get it's $250 a month, so $3,000 a year. They can take that. So we basically put that in there kind of as actual, but so you'll see the fluctuation because it's new employees. Some, one came in as family, and single, and opt-out switched to. So that's really what that is.
Yep.
How much did the health insurance change? What are we assuming in here overall?
Around 5.22.
It's just pretty good.
Yeah.
I think your spreadsheet had 5.4.
And also depending on the positions, some are paid out of just one department, others are spread, so then that's percentages too. I think next, Dan, are you moving on to the Public Works? That's 75, starts at 75.
So based on the next few budgets, the Public Works Administration, which is the engineering budget, Highway and Street Administration, there were no significant changes, plus or minus $500. But if you have any questions on either of those, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Okay. Otherwise, I'll move on to the shop, machinery, and buildings budget. The only significant movement we have there is we're increasing the gas and electric utilities by $500, and that's based on need. The next budget would be our street maintenance and construction budget. The other personnel services is increasing by $1,000 and accounts for increases in our program costs. And we are with a new provider We started service with them in 2023, and so those increases are properly captured in the 24 budget. Our snow and ice equipment maintenance and repair account increases by $500, and that's based on need. The fuels and additives decreases by $5,800, and that's based on forecasted market prices and the annual fuel use for the streets department. Our street supplies increases by $3,500, and that's based on need. And our snow and ice supplies increases by $12,600 based on the current inventory we have and the contract pricing we have from the state. So with the snow and ice supplies, that is one account that will change every year depending on what we have in our inventory. So you'll see movement in that account every year. The fuels account, there's movement on that account every year in all of our budgets. The street budget is where you'll see the most use because that's where we have the plow trucks, the pickup trucks, the daily use vehicles. So that's why you see a bigger move there. Are there any questions on that budget?
Dan, I just have one.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know what the big increase was of cost in 23 for the snow and ice equipment?
In 23?
Yeah, so in 22 our actual was just shy of 4,000, but then we jumped up to 21,000.
For is that in the maintenance item?
It's the snow and ice equipment.
Yeah, we had to replace an engine in one of the plow trucks.
That's expensive.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay. The next budget would be the road-related facilities budget. That covers our street lights and traffic lights in Monona. The street lighting utilities, we're increasing that by $2,000. That's to account for rate increases and other charges. Other charges are inventory for the shelf, whether it be a pole, an actual light, shields, and things of that nature. We've had a really good year so far this year. Not as many streetlights have been hit by automobiles, so that's a good thing.
Wait until my son gets his license.
As long as it's not a Monona Drive pole, we'll be okay. And it's about a $10,000 hit for Monona Drive. And the next item would be the traffic control maintenance. That decreases by $3,500 based on need. That's based off contract with the City of Madison Traffic Department. They maintain our traffic signals in Monona. Any questions for that budget? Okay. The next one would be forestry. The right-of-way tree removal decreases by $4,000 based on need. This is assigned to the crew, work completed by the crew. Tree removals and care increases by $1,500 based on need. That's contracted removal. Brush pickup, this increases by $2,955. This is half the increase. The other half shows up in our stormwater utility budget. This includes storm cleanup assistance and Christmas tree collection as well. Any questions for the forestry budget?
I am sort of curious about that brush pickup increase.
Mm-hmm.
What do you predict is happening there?
That's actually going to be on the November 16th Finance and Council agenda to renew the contract.
Okay.
It's an annual increase.
It's just a contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we go for 3-year contracts. So the number you see in this budget is the 2024 first year of that contract. Any other questions?
I'm actually going backwards, I'm sorry. I see 2 items that were crossed out already, street outside services and under street maintenance. There's crack filling each hatch for almost $19,000.
Yep.
And then weed treatment for the boulevards for around $2,500. Are these items that we have been doing that we're eliminating, or is it being allocated somewhere else? I just want to make sure I understand.
Sure. Those have been cut back in 2022 and 2023 based on the 0% budget increases. So for Public Works to help meet our 0%, those are the lines that have been cut. The crack filling, when we complete the chip seal program, all of those streets get crack sealed. It's an automatic. So what we've used in the past for this account are the other streets that we would have a need for crack sealing on that are not included in the chip seal program. So that area, I don't want to say it's behind, but that area is not getting attention. We are still completing infrared heat patches, but that's being paid for out of the capital budget, for the street maintenance capital budget. So when the operating budget goes to referendum in the future, I believe there's going to be a portion that will cover operations and maintenance. Hopefully we can get some of these dollars back if there is a referendum and it passes. So I would like to add these back in the future.
So in general, we used to roughly spend 18,000, a little bit more than 18,000 on crack repair and heat patch on streets that weren't already focused for chip sealing. We haven't been doing that for 2 years already.
2 to 3 years, yeah. I think it's been 4 years where we've had budget.
I know at least the last two, there
Yeah.
was a 0%.
Yeah.
Might have been the one the year before, too.
It has
For
not-
anything other than staff-related costs.
Right. It has not been eliminated altogether. I've been trying to make sure that we still get adequate crack sealing done on our streets. As far as the weed treatment, we used to have weed treatments done on the boulevards, Winona Drive and Broadway. So we haven't been doing that. That was a contracted service.
Can I ask that Brian check his mic? It was pretty hard to hear him talk.
Sure.
Anyone have any other questions for Dan? Or did you want to repeat that, Rick, or?
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, moving on. The next would be the solid waste budget. That would be page 154, I believe. So we covered these numbers a few weeks ago when we approved the Pillsbury contract. So as Mark indicated earlier, the solid waste and the recycle collection will be taken off the tax roll and be fee-based annually now. The numbers that you see here are based off the proposal that we did receive that you did approve a few weeks ago. Are there any additional questions or any other explanations that I can provide? The next budget would be the stormwater utility, page 157. The outside services account on that one decreases by $1,400 based on need. Our vehicle maintenance and repair account for the vehicles used in the stormwater utility increases by $3,500, and that's to account for the needed maintenance. I think we've been seeing the maintenance increasing on that. Mainly, that's the street sweeper and allocation for the leaf collection trucks. The fuels and additives increased by $2,885, and that's again based on forecasted market prices and the annual fuel use. The bulk of that usage is the street sweeper and the 3 leaf collection trucks. The NR 216 expenses increases by $575, and that's based on need. And then the other half of the brush pickup allocation, $2,955 this year as well. Any other questions for the stormwater utility budget?
I'm just curious, can you explain why stormwater utility and forestry both share the brush pickup?
That's historical. That goes back
It just
before my
always
time.
goes half and half?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark, do you recall how that came about?
It's not a critical need that I have to know. If there's a short answer, it's up, you don't have to explain the long history.
Well, originally it was all general fund.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you still got to clean streets afterwards, and it's, so there's
sure.
correlation you made to go into the storm. But it really came from capital.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember our argument at the time, but we always went with it since.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for that budget? All right, moving on. The next one is the water utility budget, page 163. The first item there in the reservoir and tower accounts, it's the reservoir and towers material and repair. This is a one-time increase for 2024, increasing by $10,000. We have a DNR requirement to complete the inspections of the towers and 3 reservoirs next year. It's a state requirement, so we don't have a choice in that. And this will be reduced again for the 2025 budget. The next one would be in the maintenance of services, maintenance of outside service account. We're decreasing that by $700, and that's based on need. This money goes to bring a contractor in and help us with any water service shutoff valve that might be leaking that we can't fix ourselves. So we didn't see a need to keep that up for $700. This would be one that if we see an increase in service repair, we'll probably increase that again in the future, but as of right now, we don't need that money. In the admin and general portion of the budget, the certifications and education, we are increasing that by $800. It's for the operator certification classes. We have 3 new hires in 2023. We've had an individual go through the class already. We have 1 more signed up to go through next year, and we do have 1 waiting after that. But this covers the DNR certification for groundwater and distribution. The fuels and additives increases by $2,160, again based on forecasted market prices and annual fuel use. And the last item here, the GIS mapping program, we're decreasing that by $760. The goal here is to evenly distribute the GIS charges among the 3 utilities. Any other questions for the water utility budget?
And the garage rental, that is a rental of our own garage, right? So
Yep.
this is a payback.
Yep, and
portion.
that's an accounting thing. I will have Mark explain
So
that.
in the general fund, you'll see there's a transfer from water utility. This is part of that. So basically, we charge the water utility to rent that space for their vehicles.
And
so it's basically divided by 12 is what the monthly rent is.
is there any reason that we haven't increased this? Like it seems like it should be a static number if our cost of operating that building facility continues to increase, and with some substantial capital upgrades that are happening, that some of that should be shared with the water utility.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to increase it both water, sewer and water based on the new roofing that's put in, some other stuff. So I was planning on doing it in the next couple of years. Well, we haven't done it for a while with the utilities increasing the stuff. We will be once the new project is done. That was my plan.
I wonder if we can take a percentage of the operating cost of running that building and have a formula that has that built in. Because if you were renting somewhere else,
Right.
your rate would go up every year.
It would make sense to do it for all 3 utilities because there's equipment in all 3 utilities that use that space.
Yeah, it's a shared cost that
Yeah.
would be associated if we had to rent out from.
Right, if you had to rent somewhere else.
Anyone else?
Okay, the last budget for us, for me, sewer utility, page 175. Now, the first item, I'll explain a little bit. I know Mark covered it a little bit at the beginning. Under the operations and maintenance portion, our MMSD disposal service. we're decreasing that by $85,000. That's based on our gallons discharged to the plant. Mark had mentioned that, our budget is not increasing because of the increase being passed on by the sewer district every year, average 6 to 8%. The reason why we are decreasing our budget is we have been trying to tackle our I&I issue in our capital budget. And we've been working on that for the past 4 to 5 years. And we've been pretty darn successful with that to the point where we can actually reduce this line item. We've done 3 or 4 lining projects now. And we've taken our I&I from, I think we were at a high of 52% of our flows to MMSD, and we dropped that down to single digits of, I think, about 4%, 6%, somewhere in there.
That's amazing.
It's huge.
From 52 to 4%.
Yeah, we've cut it more than half.
Oh,
so we're fortunate, and in this year, we're decreasing that by $85,000. I think we're going down to about $1 million. Yeah, 1 million even. So, and we'll see where it goes next year. But we do have more lining projects coming in our future. The goal is to keep fixing the deficient areas in our sanitary sewer system. So it's paying off.
So we're basically sending less water.
Right.
Yes.
Or less sewage, rather.
Right.
To them, because it's.
Well, we're sending the same amount of sewage, but there's less
groundwater
infiltrating into that sewage pipe because of the sewage pipe being less perfect.
Right.
So we, it's the amount of gallons. Like I said, we've cut it more than in half. And so when you have 2 million gallons a day and you cut it down to 1 million, you reduce those characteristic charges, you reduce those flow charges, and we're seeing a benefit to that. So actually, we're going to see, based on what it's cost us in the capital budget, we're going to see that very quick. I mean, we're already seeing it 2 years in a row now, payback in our operating budget. So a good success.
So $85,000 this year, and I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the page in front of me on my laptop, but there's probably a cost savings last year as well.
Yes.
What line would that be?
819,000 we spent in 2022, and we had budgeted, I think 1,085,000 then too. I don't think we increased it for this year.
Yeah, so that, I don't know if you, I think 2020, I think you could see this around was like 900,000. And then when you don't have the years before that, that number was growing and growing. That's because all that I&I was getting in there.
Yeah.
So we always got these large increases from MSD, so that number is increasing. So now we're backing that down because of all the stuff that's been done.
Right.
So that's why you're like, oh, this number seems really high to what we paid. It was because of those years that, just based on the projections. It should be based on where we were at that time. If we would have kept the same pattern, we'd be
Right,
over
exactly.
by now.
And you've still got work yet to go, so we're going to see another year at least.
We should still,
with a decrease.
yeah, we should see more improvement. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
and all the capital projects that MMSD has, in addition to operating their plant, are all in the quarterly charges that we get from them. So we don't get 2 bills from them. We just get 1 bill. It's labeled MMSD disposal service, and part of these fees are to cover their capital projects. So, okay, moving on, the maintenance of mains and laterals. We're requesting increase by $3,000 for that. That's the line item that we clean and televise our sanitary sewer system. Our goal is to do that about 33% of our system every year. So every 3 years, we have done 100% of our system. So that $3,000 is basically inflationary costs to do the work. The last item would be in the admin and general expense, the GIS mapping program. We're increasing that by $1,000. Again, that's to even out the GIS charges among the 3 utilities. Any other questions for the sewer budget?
Right.
There was a significant decrease in the outside services for the mains and laterals, was that when we switched vendors? Or did it get allocated somewhere else?
That's just a weird accounting thing. And I probably should fix it or figure out how to do it a little better. So basically, outside services, we do all this I&I work. The actual, work that when we actually work on the mains and stuff like that is capital, but these studies, we borrow for it. It's part of the capital, but per accounting rules, it's an actual operating expense.
Okay.
So it's really, those years are a lot of the studies that we did, and just the way you have to show it per the accounting rules, but we budget for it and we borrow for it.
Okay, so it showed up here, but it was really capital money.
It's really capital, it
Okay.
just has to get shown like that per the accounting rules.
So that was the lift station study that we did, and then the couple of years, the 4 years of.
Yeah, well, the big outside services are usually not just studies that.
Okay.
Okay, that would be it for me.
Any questions for Dan about anything?
Thank you.
It's not. You're welcome. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
And now it's Mark's turn.
Usually a lot longer than this is one of the quickest ones I've been at, so.
Yeah, that's because it's such a great budget.
Yeah, well, we're not done yet. You just jinxed
You do
it.
say
So.
so yourself. You don't have anybody to do anything. It's not
Right.
So I kind of sent out a little bit, I don't know if you see it, kind of the revenues, but kind of, so it starts on page 16, just kind of go over the major changes. Personal property tax did go down about $10,000. So basically this number came from the state. I think there was an adjustment made, if I remember right, but it was a legit number. So this is when they used to have personal property, probably I think 2019 this became new, maybe 2020. But this number will increase a lot in 2025, I believe, because that's when they eliminate personal property altogether, and they'll give us a set amount every year. So.
And you think it'll be more?
It'll be a lot more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That seems odd.
Why do you, yeah, I guess I'm curious, why do you, is that already, that's already in the books? Like,
It's part of the state statute change, when they changed
Okay.
the part of the shared revenues, they eliminated personal property.
Right.
So to give back to the communities, they were going to make them kind of whole on what that number would have been, like that percentage. So it's not going to be much. It's only going to be like 20,000 or 30,000. But there'll be a number they'll give us. Kind of when they took the original, because there used to be 3 or 4 different categories of personal property. In like 2019, they changed it, and now there's only like 2 or 3. So that was the difference when they changed it back in 2019. So it'll be a little bit. It's not going to be much, but it'll go up about 20,000 probably. But that was part of the state statute change, share revenue. Taxes from city-owned utilities, this would be water utilities. So basically, water utilities gets, in a roundabout way, gets a tax bill. So mill rate has been decreasing. Like this year, we're projecting about 292, but it is going. School is going up, so I only decreased it by 13,000, so that's probably down to the 292. But with the mill rate decreasing, that number will decrease. When you see taxes from other exempt entities, just so you know, that's like Monona Hills, Monona Meadows, they pay a pilot. There's a couple other ones. I can't think
Elder Leopold.
Elder Leopold. 2 Dane County ones, like CDAs, 2 Dane County Housing Authority ones that we have left. State share revenue. Share revenue number, that's everybody's aware of, that was changed this year from the state. Expenditure restraint program, that went down. But we're guaranteed that number for next year, for the 2025 budget, $144,000.
So you have to qualify for every year for the following year. And usually it's, again, the net new construction and the CPI. So it's hard to qualify for. So luckily we don't have, based on what our budget is for this year, we probably wouldn't have qualified for 2025 without making a lot of changes. So it came at the right time with the state share revenue. Transportation aids, this is based on, well, there was extra money put in this year from the state, but it's a 5-year rolling average. It takes your spending on basically public works, roads, money, and so this is our number. It fluctuates. As you can see, back in 2020, it was 653. Now we're up to 740. So it's been a large, almost 90,000 increase this couple of years. So we have been spending a lot of money on our roads and projects. So when you talk about the capital, this is basically kind of related to the capital spending too. Oh, it is a lot related to the capital spending. Exempt computer aid, we used to get, just so people are aware, we used to get money like, so there used to be a tax for computers. That would be part of your basically tax bill. But that's been eliminated years ago, so we just get the same amount every year. That's how much you were getting when they eliminated that program. License and permits, not a ton of changes, but the STR license, short-term rental licenses, this is the first year of putting that in there. Maybe it's too high, maybe it's too low, but we needed the starting point. We do have the software now, and there's been, people, based on Bill Cole, if you're prior doing an STR before we passed the law or the ordinance, you're exempt until the first of the year, so we'll start really knowing where this is going to be early next year. But this is what we put in there. I think right now, the last time we looked, just recently, we're at 41, we believe, 41 units. So it was actually down, I think, 3 units.
I was going to say, I thought it was more like 45
yeah,
spring.
Yeah, it was like 44, 45, now it's down to 41. But it could be just people weren't listed at the time. It just, if you're listed, that's what it pings. So it's really great software. We're just getting people trained up on it and trying to figure out how to do it and how we're going to enforce it. With that. But
it's taken quite a while for us to get the software from the company because they had to do a lot of programming.
Yeah, they had to get the back end, all that stuff.
So it's only been recently, right, that we got
yeah, and I would say there's probably been at least, don't quote me on that, but at least 5 to 10 people asking for exemptions. So, and that's, Neil gets to approve those, yes or no. But I know there's been a bunch of people requesting exemptions
So
on that.
what is it again for each unit? What are the fees?
Is it 1,000?
No, it's
Is it 750?
750.
Okay.
We had our first one just turn one in, just recently, on top with an exemption request too. But yeah, so building permits and electric that did go up. I did increase those, and that's really. I think I did increase that, not a lot overall, but that's, I think a lot of the big projects are going to be started at the end of this year. So I don't know how much is going to carry over, but just in general, we increased them a little bit. We just increased fees, so we decided not to increase fees this year, but probably the year after we'll start looking at increasing fees. Excavation permits should be rewarded, so it's basically right-of-way permits. Back in 2020, you'll see 124,000. It carries over in 2021. That was TDS's big push. It was right around that time, and it had gradually been going down. We thought, we decreased the budget in 23 just because we didn't think people were pulling the permits anymore. But according to Dan and according to workload right now, people are still pulling a lot of these right-of-way permits for a lot of these lines.
5Gs or whatever they're putting in there. So we did increase it because the work is still coming, and we think it's still going to continue. Court fines, court penalties. So this one, so back in 2000, I don't have 19 in there unfortunately, but we were up to around 170, 180, and then COVID hit. And so then we had some changeover in personnel and trying collection. So I don't know if you've ever met Elliot. He does a really good job with collections. He's been collecting a lot of the old payments, a lot of stuff that we thought probably could have been written off or not collected. So I'm a little hesitant to go to 170, but I think probably with him doing the collections, I think we can probably get that. We average for 2000, I don't know 2023 is yet. I know 2022, I can't remember the exact number. We basically average one ticket per shift. So I think we're probably still right around that. So that's what we average. The other one that's probably a little disappointing to me is the parking violations. But I keep that the same. We used to be up around 15,000 to 20,000 with that one. But right now, we're a little bit down on that. So it is getting, they're starting more and more, writing more and more tickets. There was an officer who was, I don't know if you remember, Vicki Peterson, another one. She was pretty aggressive about writing parking tickets, especially about boat at school, things like that, boat launches. So I think she was a big one with that. I think the newer guys are starting to get into writing it a little bit more. So I think
She
that in general,
retired, what, 2 years ago, maybe?
yeah. So, but it's hard to tell because 2021 was COVID years, and so it's really would have been down there in general.
Mark, I'm not seeing that. It seems to me that this line item has increased over the years.
Which one?
Parking violations, is that?
It used to be, I say I don't have 2019 before pre-COVID numbers.
I see what you're saying. Got it.
Yeah. It was consistent, probably around 15,000 for sure.
Wow.
But then COVID hit, and then Vicki retired.
Okay. It went down to 5,000 from 15, and it's just been slowly creeping back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, I think it's more and more getting back in the process again.
Sure.
With that as well.
Well, and that's something that the department would like to see in the operating referendum, is a traffic officer.
Yeah.
And to do some other things too, but, both speeding, parking, we really could use someone who focuses more on those kind of things.
Public charges for services, underneath there's park shelter rentals, went up 4,000. That's just based on, we did increase the rates in 2023, and it should carry over to 2024, and Jake has not made any increases to the rental as far as the cost. Boat launch fees, this is probably the big one. We did decrease it $10,000. Unfortunately, I think it used to be around, it's always been around 25, I think it was around 25,000. So basically, we used to have hardwood store, Ace, I believe. They used to collect all our boat launches. They get a certain percentage. And then we get the revenues. So this is really collecting for Dane County. They let us keep the money. So you can go buy your boat launch anywhere in Dane County. And really, we don't have a great system anymore without ACE here. You can go buy a ticket at the like a season pass at one of the boat launches, but then you got to take that, you got to bring it into City Hall, and so we had to fill a form out for them. And I think we had to give them a refund of $5 or something like that too. There's an issue. So it's just a lot of hard process. I think people just find a spot they go to now, some business or whatever's easiest for them, and go. We do sell them, but it's just not there. So that number's decreased. The actual money is collected in a whole different fund. We have to have a boat launch fund by state statute that collects all the revenues, and we just budget a number. I believe it was 25,000, and it's just slowly we had to do that. So I don't know if you guys also remember back. I don't know if you all remember. About 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, we did the 20 Watt, the boat launch, and one of the other what do you call it, boat launch. Well, that came in over budget, so what we ended up doing is we borrowed the money from the general fund. So we need to also pay back that too. So we're paying that back too at the same time, so the cash back. So that's why it's so low. But in general, it's just, there's not a great collection source for it right now. If anybody has a great idea on that, I'm sure the Park and Rec Department would love to hear it. But it's a tough one right now.
Isn't there an Ace Hardware on Cottage Grove
There is
Road?
now, so I don't know if they've approached them or not. I can ask.
I don't know if they have nearly as big a business with fishing
Yeah.
equipment. Because
Yeah,
I don't think
they
they
could
opened
be.
the basement this time. And didn't all that used to be down
Used to be
Yeah.
downstairs.
in the
Yeah.
basement there, I
Yeah.
think? I always thought Quick Trip would be a good one too, down at the end of Monona Drive.
I know
Right
they
by
tried to
Pilates.
talk to them. I don't know if it went anywhere.
So where does the county and this municipality overlap on this issue? Is it ours to go out and potentially gain from, or do we have to work together with the county, or?
Well, the county gives us each year they give us stickers, they give
They set the
Give it-
fee.
They set the fee?
They set the fee.
Yeah, they set the fee and everything.
And we sell it? Okay.
Anybody sells it.
Anybody,
What's that?
anybody in Dane County can sell it.
Anybody can.
So,
But if we make it easy,
there's a way.
we would end up selling more.
Yeah, that's why they used to go to East Harbor. It must have been like a spot everybody knew.
Sounds like a job for Elliot.
They were comfortable with at the time.
Yeah.
We can come to City Hall. But fishermen are used to going to a certain spot, probably where they get their bait or they get their gear or whatever.
Hardly liquor.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Well, Ace was Madison
Ace
too.
is- Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, they go there in DNS up
Yeah.
on the north side.
Yeah.
So
So
we talked about postcards, mailers, and everybody that has a boat
yeah.
registered in the county, but I thought that was frowned upon.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there's communities only trying to take it.
Yeah.
But it is, I think it's where you're comfortable getting all your gear and stuff like that in your lounge or whatever, you go fishing. So,
You could put a little sign up at City Hall that says, get your
yeah.
boat launch.
We do have people walking
Here.
to do it.
Bait shop?
We sell minnows if you
Yeah.
That would be a logical one.
People don't go there.
They go there for ice cream.
So under the miscellaneous revenues, interest income is probably the big one. We did increase the full, probably could increase a little bit more. This is what I always get a little nervous about because once it drops, it's hard to. One time, like 2021, we're down to $43 and kept on dropping, 43,000, and we had to make that up somewhere. Usually it's reducing some type of expense. Could be increased a little bit, but we have a lot of big balances right now, and they'll eventually be going away. But we are increasing that. The rates are still fairly high. I just don't know how much longer they're going to stay out there, or maybe they'll stay there for 2 or 3 more years.
And you're talking about interest and dividends, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So that's interest and dividends on the cash that we have?
Yeah.
But anything else?
We have some investments. But not a ton.
Significant.
We get a great Monona Bank or Lake Ridge now. They give us a 15 points over the basis,
Yeah.
which is pretty good.
Yeah.
We do a lot better. We looked around and
Yeah.
everybody says they're probably not going to get a better deal than what we get.
And we're one of their biggest customers. We were, right? Maybe
Yeah.
before. Maybe
Yeah.
that isn't the case anymore. Not
A
the
couple
other.
times they've asked if we want to think about reducing it.
No.
We always say, oh, it's been.
Do we want? No.
It's very nice of you.
Didn't we reduce it a few years
We
ago?
did once. But Mary Miller at the time kind of strong on a little bit to get an increase.
I thought when Brian was here, though, he agreed to reduction.
Well, Bob got it up there, and then Brian decreased it because it was kind of like, okay.
Kind of like highway robbery. Or,
It was like 25 points. It was,
Yeah.
it was high.
40%.
It was good for the relationship. I mean, we could have, but then we basically went along and go off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just so, there's a, I don't know if you've noticed, this miscellaneous revenue is one hit, it's even though it's on year expenditures. I can't remember what's in 2022. 25, PFAS, is it the stuff that, we got a settlement, and that's part of, that's what mostly that is on there.
What line is that?
Miscellaneous revenues.
Miscellaneous revenues, the PFAS settlement?
There was a lawsuit that was done, class action.
Oh.
So we got,
So
I think it was like
hence
23,000 or so, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's part of that 25, just so you wondered.
Got it.
Transfer from other, these are again, so basically that, we haven't really changed these for years. So like the library, we charge them for, insurance, and accounting stuff. In EMS, we actually charge some person's time there, so we don't really charge them as much. Tour was reduced, it was 170, but really it's 157 based on, they should have reduced it last year.
Is that a formula, or how is that?
It goes back to
determined?
2015, so it's whatever we put under tax. We do like a tax, it's called state report. It's like a tax return you do every year, and it was what we recorded that year.
But how is the amount that so this is money coming back from the tourism?
Tourism collected it, and we have to transfer it back, because that's what was grandfathered in.
Because we can keep a certain percentage for operating, right?
But if tourism keeps at the same pace it's going, we'll probably pass a grandfather model. So if it stays on the same path, which ends up being, we get 30%, which would probably be a little bit more. But we'll probably have a good idea at the end of this year. Might be an extra 10,000 or so.
That helps.
I will say, it's funny, Airbnb just got the third quarter. They went down like $160,000 in revenue. Expedia went up about $160,000 in revenue. So.
Like what went up?
Expedia.
Expedia, yeah.
So I don't know if people are using that one more, but that's the same. But
That's a big drop.
Yeah, Airbnb dropped, Expedia went way up.
I didn't know Expedia
I didn't either.
was a.
I thought they were just for travel, like tickets and
Yeah.
stuff. But they have hotels.
No, they pack. Well, no,
But they
they
also
do
have.
Airbnbs.
They also have, yeah. Oh my God.
Huh.
Okay, yeah. I guess you're right.
That's all I have for revenues. If you have questions on these revenues.
Well, does our new software for STRs look at Expedia pings?
Yeah, it pings anything. It's like,
Okay. Yeah.
I believe so, but I'll double check.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Next would be debt service. So that's page 149. This was a little bit unique. So we did go up, I think it was, as you see, the general property taxes did go up. The miscellaneous, just so you know, revenue of $10,000. That's the payment we receive from Lake Ridge every year for the ice rink, for that whole sponsorship. Put it in debt service because it's paying back for the debt we borrowed for that. But principal and the interest is basically about the same as last year. Big difference is we use fund balance supply about $110,000. So if we back that out, the only increase would have been $70,000 or so. Library expansion debt service. This is the last payment we'll have to make for this. So basically, this is we borrowed money from TIF 6 to pay off the loan early, to save us over $100-some thousand worth of interest. And we slowly paid it back because it was really not a rush to pay it back. But this will be the last payment because we weren't charging interest from the TIF. So this will be the final payment. Technically, all that the library expansion is paid off. Would have been paid off earlier, but we just slowly paid it back. That to the TIF. Next is 150 is the tips. I have scheduled for tonight. TIF 4 is kind of I'll reveal it. If you want to save that place, if you go to page 10. So page 10 is how you calculate this debt, or the increment value. So basically, this is a worksheet you get. So the appropriate levy, the first column, is what each person would have to levy that year, and this formula is driven in terms of what the interim rate is, and it gives the amount to be levied. How much increment, the second to last column, 2024 increment is $4 million that we will collect. There's a little box at the very bottom. So each increment value, that's the value for each district. So at $209 million worth of value in these districts. And you can see the increment value based on each different district with that. So that's how this calculates, the whole formula-driven process. TIF, so on page 150, TIF 4, just in case people don't know, is Monona Drive. So we have, so the TIF increment, you can see it ties into that number here. It flows through to that first couple page, that first page we looked at. Just so you know, kind of, yeah, after the end of the year, we'll have $2.5 million outstanding in debt. TIF is open to 2031. But we are projecting to be paid off by 2028, and we could do it a year sooner if we needed. But so that TIF is projected to be paid off fairly soon. It's not in; it's in the 5-year, within 5 years. So we technically can't charge any expenses other than interest and principals to that. It was extended 3 years, in case you, just so you know. We thought we weren't going to make it, but we are. TIF 5, so I call it the Garden Circle. It's the heritage area. So this is probably, our least successful money-wise TIF. There's different issues there, but for money-wise, but for everything else, it's a very successful TIF of cleaning that area up. This TIF was extended. We got an extension on there to 2037 if needed. We're estimated to probably pay it off in 2032. We do have $6.5 million of debt left to pay. I don't know if you remember at the last meeting I had on the agenda, we're refinancing a loan on there. And you can kind of see why we're refinancing. I get a lot of increment in this. We got $541,000. We're going to transfer it in from that TIF number 6 at $575,000. We have to use fund balance. We're starting to use up all that fund balance in that fund. And the principal and interest payments are 1.5, and just the increment never came into where we were supposed to be. But once we're refinanced, we'll have it all done by 2032 within the time period needed. Sometimes that just happens with some of these TIFs when you are doing something special. It's not just about making money. TIF 6, which is was the Meriter UW area clinics, but also now is the TIF for North Point and Whitehorse. Very successful TIF. As you can see, we were able to transfer $575,000 over to the other TIFs. As we looked over to TIF number 5. With this, if we didn't do the Whitehorse out of there, it would be paid off in 5 years altogether. But with Whitehorse and North Point in there, it'll probably go close to the length of the TIF, just so we can get the payback that's part of the developer's agreement with North Point. But we would have the funds regardless if something would happen with that project. TIF number 7 is Fairway Glen, obviously UW clinic, if anybody remembers that on Monroe Drive. That is all paid off. The reason we left it open is there's a project that could happen, the vacant lot. So depending how CDA determines how they want to go, if CDA approves it, if they want a new TIF set up there, or if they want to use this existing TIF,
If not, we will be proposing, if we don't use this existing tip, we'll be proposing to close it next year, get a last, send it to the.
Or would we keep it open for a year?
You keep it open for the
renewal
and then close it. So, but you'd have to still tell them we're going to close it after that, so it's all for that. TIP 8, I don't know the name of it anymore, but I call it Trace Stuff. There we have $2.1 million left of debt to pay off. It's projected to be paid off in 6 years. I don't know if you're also aware of, we did buy within a half mile the Chase Bank building, so that's part of the $2.1 million left to pay. So it does send money over also to TIP number 9. And TIP number 9 is Riverfront. At the end of the year, we do have $17,600,000 worth of principal payments left to pay. But we're starting to get our large chunk now. It's $1.2 million per year. And is there any questions about TIPs?
Teresa?
Yeah, I was just trying to remember. None of these tips are yet the model, that pay-go model, correct? These are all like the same model. It's only
right.
A
so
future tip that might be that pay-go model.
When I say how much debt we have there, that's because we.
Yeah.
But it's, we got to usually borrow the lower interest rates and stuff like that. So there's pros and cons when we used to we had more control.
We're in the process of setting up one for the boom, though.
Correct.
There will be one in TIF 9.
Yeah.
Bayside will be in TIF 9.
Yeah.
One of Gardner's one. So that's been decided.
TIF 9 is Bayside?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's here.
It's in the
current
district.
and Bayside.
Got it.
So one of Gardner's is in the district.
Yeah.
Which I just saw an email that the groundbreaking's been delayed again.
Oh.
Yeah. Is that from our inspectors?
This came from the guy from the company who's been setting up the.
That's all I have.
Any other questions for Mark?
I guess I'm just curious about, well, forget it. We'll talk about that some other time with the Parkland Fund.
Well, it's not next one, but
That's next meeting. Okay.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
It's just Parkland dedication fees.
Yep. Okay.
Very enough.
Thank you.
Budgeted for.
Anyone else have anything? I don't know. Nancy, you there? I don't know. Okay.
I am here, Mayor.
Oh, you are there. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that Nancy has just become AI.
Yeah.
I've seen her in so many.
Yeah. I'm here.
There she is. It's real. Well, we will be meeting again on Monday at 5:30 to do the other half of the operating budget. And we may have, I don't know, for this approval of the Bloom agreement on Monday, on this coming Monday. Bill was going to check with their attorney.
So we have to reschedule we do the time just to do a new agenda.
Yeah, we'd have to redo it, so I told him to let us know as soon as he knows. Anyway, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.